So good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, I'm Emmanuel. With me, Lauriane. So I'm in the metaverse, but Lauriane is a human being, not too far from me, actually. So I'll step out of this synthetic environment very soon and join Lauriane to demystify. And I like indeed that's really what we wanted to do in this section, to demystify the metaverse. Before jumping, I'd like to just cover broadly a bit of metaverse, what we've seen in the recent month, arguably over the last year, with different announcements, from Facebook becoming Meta to different events, happening, presence of CVS or Lego, some brands and logos you will recognize on this slide, from how they started to engage on the metaverse, as well as also some announcements either in terms of the future of payments with crypto, with digital currencies, with decentralized payments, all the way to Microsoft, with whom we are working frequently on this type of technologies and projects, and also their investment in this. So many announcements, and also ourselves, I guess, gamers, non-gamers, enthusiasts, and starting to jump on the bandwagon of NFTs and cryptos and Roblox and Minecraft and all the events, not just the games, not just the speculation on cryptos and NFTs, but also the kind of movement we've seen. That's the starting point. We believe that there is a huge potential going forward, and it's not just me or us in Accenture, but if you look at different announcements, estimates from different banks globally, or some of the numbers, we start to see more than just a toy, meaning in the metaverse, and also the potential, looking in the next decade. And even though it's a growing market and opportunities, we firmly believe that this is starting to be or depict what could be the next decade of evolution of the internet. I'll come back to this, which we have called the metaverse continuum. And this notion of continuum is not just about being in Roblox or Animal Crossing and interacting with a bank that has actually happened several months ago, but it's also how the metaverse is going to help evolve from an experiential standpoint, but also in terms of interaction back to the physical world and in between. So it's really this notion of continuum that we talk about. It's going to be also, we'll emphasize quite a lot on this in terms of these applications of the metaverse, not just, again, in terms of brands interacting with their consumers and prospects to attract, new population, younger population, roll out some collabs with NFTs. It's about that, but it's actually much more profound in terms of experience as an end user, as a human, meaning that I'm also an employee, I'm also a worker, I'm also a patient, and what's going to be this continuum in the future, thanks to the metaverse. And if we look and just to hint on some of the evolution, I won't go and do a history of the internet and keep the timing, but being able to look at how the internet has evolved, in the past 25, 30 years. And, starting in the mid 1990s, the rise of the internet, building on top of the client server world, and protocols, HTTP and others rising at the time, being standardized, all the way to the internet bubble in the early 2000s was the era of Internet of Data. Building search engines, some of the giants we see today started as a simple search engine, and there are much more now, of course, about indexing of data, for intranet as well. But of course, the wave and supporting the wave of the e-commerce at the time, how to shift from normal and traditional shopping to e-commerce, as we've seen and most of us, lived through. So Internet of Data. In parallel, also, just that's from a consumer standpoint and user, the change of businesses, but also in terms of bringing those technologies, those initial use cases to the enterprise world. Intranet was a term back in the day, in that era, where you started to put documents and share not by email, not by other antique protocols and other ways of sharing documents like FTP, for example. Most of you won't know what FTP is, but using intranet to start to collect, digitize not just documents but also processes in companies. Moving forward a few years, in the 2000s, mid 2000s, you see from the logos here, some of the logos we use every day, I guess, but the Internet of People, the era of Internet of People, with the rise of technologies around social media platforms and social media behaviors and so forth, and at the same time, the rise of mobile devices, tablets and phones and so forth. So here it was very interesting in terms of looking at applications not just for consumers, digital, that was the prequel to digital era, but also to enable in the enterprise novel ways of organizing the work, of sharing knowledge, so enterprise social, all the way to equip mobile workforce, with these tablets and smartphones to carry out their work continuously throughout the day. Internet of Things was the next era. We're still in that one, arguably, but we're not only building on top of the previous waves. We've connected everything: connected health, wearing smart watches, smart band; connected home, putting cameras and sensors; connected buildings, connected factories. We'll see some examples in the evolution of that era. And we believe building on top of those three waves, what Web3, what the metaverse will add are two fundamental components. One is Internet of Place, what I mentioned around virtual experience, physical, phygital, and in between type of experience. So how does it change the way we work, the way brands sell, distribute product and services? And Internet of Ownership. How, in a more digital and digitized world, do we prove the provenance? Do we prove the ownership of the data of an asset, whether it's purely virtual, like an NFT, typically a piece of art, a video, a GIF, virtual image, digital image, which is unique because it's associated with on the blockchain with a smart contract, and therefore we can track who owns that particular piece of art. And we'll see other applications in terms of tokenization of everything and anything. So that's a way simply to remember the metaverse continuum and the evolution of the internet. And it's about experiences. So we'll see, of course, use cases and applications ranging in the different degrees of immersion. Of course, the standard, typical collaborative workplace, all the way to the much more sensorial applications and mixing with the reality, the world as we see it around us. And both, again, from a consumer, from an employee, from a human standpoint. Same with, that's the Internet of Place, the experience, but also relying on the foundation of trust, of data control, I would say, in many ways, ownership, transfer of ownership, and traceability all in between. And so some of what we see around digital identity, digital wallets have been around as a concept for many years, of course, but it's going to be about proving my identity in a virtual world all the way to when I go and step into a boutique, into a store, and also how do I manage the data and the authentication, the identification of me as an individual. It's about also, crypto and NFTs, all this relying on the technologies like multi-party systems, distributed database, distributed ledgers, blockchain, and so forth. And so just to conclude on this long introduction, but we see the metaverse not just impacting, of course, the way we interact as end users and customers and so forth, but also in this notion of continuum, many aspects, if not all aspects, gradually in the next decade of the way businesses are conducted, from companies running, the way companies run and operate their business, to how product and services are made and distributed, to how they are offered, promoted, and so forth. And of course, in between and fundamental, central to it, of course, is the human dimension, as I was mentioning before. So one other critical area of applications and metaverse use cases and concrete applications is, of course, that of the workplace experience. How we rethink about learning while doing, learning on the job. So, of course, digital, mobile, and so forth. supported by AI technologies was already a first wave and is still gradually being used, to a more impactful, more optimal and optimized and impactful way of learning, but also how it can be much more immersive. And we'll see some concrete examples when, for example, safety is element of training and preparing to do particular tasks that could be dangerous, if not lethal. That's also very important. The way, of course, work and collaboration is being done, and not just, like we're doing here. I'm from Sophia Antipolis over a video feed into the metaverse, of course, but it's also while on the go, collaborating and having a coach over the shoulder, helping me in my daily work. And all the way, we'll see also the place itself, how we redefine the workplace, broadly speaking. So that's some of the examples, and this entitles or links to fundamental elements to think about. So here I'll let you scan through those different elements pertaining to the metaverse and what I've just said about the identity, the community element, the creativity, and of course the virtual and physical, etc. All this, of course, not recreating maybe some of the bias, some of the wrong usage of previous waves of the internet and what they brought. So here, responsible metaverse is something from by design that we need to think about, and also where we're going to learn from previous waves. For example, deep fakes or fake news on social media, where technology came to the rescue to support and counter those type of misbehavior, or others around, of course, having a secure, safe, inclusive, and with equity and accessibility to the metaverse will be fundamental over the next decade. Finally, all the metaverse relies on a set of technology trends in particular, which I have listed here. So I'll quickly scan them, and then with Lauriane, to stick to the timing over the next 20 minutes, to go through our good old world and physical showcase I have around me here, where I'll step out of the metaverse and join Lauriane for some concrete illustrations with the team. But those technology constituents are, four. Number one is WebMe. So looking at putting the me in the metaverse. So how the human aspect, the data management, the identity management, the look and feel. How do I look as an avatar? We'll touch on that. And what are the new platforms from a technology perspective supporting the continuity of my experience, this continuum of my experience. That's trend number one. Trend number two touches a bit on this notion of Internet of Things and digital twin or digital twins of everything and anything. Can be a plant, can be the cyber exposure of my company, and so I would have a cybersecurity twin or cytwin, all the way now more and more to, with materials science evolving, smart materials, how we can not just understand better the world around us, refinery, a production line, how can we optimize and predict some potential failures, how we can predict also physically the wear and tear of the hardware running the business, running the plant, all the way to even being able to patch and program therefore this world, meaning feeding back to the real world what we may have simulated, in terms of updates, upgrades, and material science is labeled even to start to change the shape of some of those objects or some of those elements in the physical world. Trend number three will illustrate as well in how two fundamental aspects. One, evolution of AI to be much more detailed, much in understanding and interacting, and so making a synthetic relation or interaction much more authentic. So for example, when you interact in a training application with an avatar, that can be a human on the other side, or can be a digital avatar, not existing, with some form of AI. And that avatar will have to understand me, understand my nonverbal communication, my verbal communication, of course, and everything in between. But it's also the second element of the Unreal is how we need more and more synthetic data to be able to train systems, to be able to do much more simulations, to do new customer segmentation in a novel way. And synthesizing data is very important, and we'll see how this can be done. And finally, we need more and more computing power, but that computing power needs to consume less, be more targeted at particular applications, can be, so new machines and new possibilities is the subtitle. For example, quantum computing, edge computing have been around already for years, but are maturing more and more. They will power the metaverse from an infrastructure standpoint. I'll let you read quickly through. I won't go here, but when we talk about such technology pillars, we also mean concrete technology domains. I've just listed a few here just to illustrate those different trends. I'll stop here in terms of introduction, and we're going to walk around inside the showcase. So, Lauriane, I'll hand over to you. I know you're here on this side, so maybe you can switch and orient the screen to you, and now we see you.
Perfect. Thank you, Emmanuel, and hi, everyone. So very happy to be connected with you to present and to illustrate the various cases that we have here in the showcase to illustrate the introduction that Emmanuel presented. And firstly, to start, I would like to mention that when we are talking about the metaverse, this is also how could we put the human at the center of experience, at the center of content. And basically, this is exactly what we try to do using synthetic content. How could we use computer-generated content to be able to provide to the customer a new environment, new customized and personalized experience. And for instance, on the video at the top of the screen, you can see a Porsche advertising content, but this video has not been recorded. This is purely synthetic content, synthetic recording, and basically here we have added different type of visual effects, lighting, and so on. Then continuing on the advertising content and the way we would like to push the content to the clients to reach out the customer using this branding and jewels industry example with Pandora. So here we would like to use augmented reality technologies to be able to personalize the jewels before delivering it at home. So here, this is exactly what you can see all through the supply chain. I can personalize my bracelet, for instance, and then get it delivered either at home or into the metaverse for my avatar or as NFT. And here, this is the notion of ownership, properties, like Emmanuel said during the introduction. And when we talk about the metaverse, this is also the representation I could have as an avatar into the 3D and virtual world. And at the back of at the bottom of the wall, you can see an example of meta-human. So basically how I would look like in the future as a meta-human. And here, this is really familiar and really high fidelity content, because my meta-human avatar can have the similar and mimics the emotion that I can have here in the physical space in the real life. And I will also zoom to Emmanuel, who is actually playing with his meta-human avatar. So Emmanuel, we can see you right now. It's coming.
Hello, so I'm back. I'm step out of the metaverse, and now I'm using this smartphone to do a face capture, and you can see a bit the synchronization with my virtual avatar, which obviously looks exactly like me with beautiful hair and sunglasses and everything. That's technologies that we have literally in the palm of our hands, and whether it's actually an exact replica of myself or something completely different links very well back to project the high fidelity characteristics of hair and so forth, but as well also can change completely. So just an example on this whole area of digital avatars and so forth. Back to you, Lauriane.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So then continuing on the digital and phygital experience with a demo that we used for Cybos. Here the goal were to be able to scan a QR code in a physical shop and then have the virtual representation of the item into a virtual shop floor. And then all the experience in the virtual show floor will be personalized according to all the info and credentials that I store in my digital wallet, such as age, salary, but also shopping preferences. And all the shopping experience will be personalized for myself. So here, this is a context of shopping a suitcase or bag into the virtual show floor. I can see the 3D model of the suitcase or of the bag, and then I can use my digital wallet, my digital identity also to be able to purchase the item. So here we are also using blockchain. So again, this is this notion of digital properties, digital ownership to be able to track my purchase, and then I can either get it delivered at home or into the metaverse. And all the items are linked to an NFT, like we can see today with a Gucci. For instance, if you're buying a Gucci bag, maybe you will have an NFT linked to this purchase. When we're also talking about the human at the center of the metaverse and at the experience, this is also for community event, but also onboarding experience. And that's exactly what we did at Accenture, creating our own metaverse experience. And here you can see my colleagues, Jeff, just behind me, so connected into the Accenture Park metaverse that we have created for a new joiner experience, new joiner onboarding. So here we have Jeff connected with a virtual headset into the environment that you can see there. Here you can see his avatar, and all new joiner at Accenture can join Jeff into this metaverse and 3D world environment to meet some experts like Emmanuel. So today we are connected using Microsoft Teams, but tomorrow maybe Jeff would like to meet Emmanuel in a more immersive way. Continuing into this 3D and virtual environment, but also for product development. And for that, I will hand over to you, Emmanuel.
Perfect. Thanks. So we're connecting now to the other environment. So here I am. And indeed, Lauriane presented what we have developed, on Altspace VR, and we have dedicated environments. So indeed, for the employee onboarding of Accenture, but also many other meetings, we have other environments to explain, for example, for the way different types of businesses work, and make it more immersive. So that's how we use it, not just for employee onboarding, but actually for many of our meetings where 3D and the collaborative experience add some value, which is a good transition here in this space where we have more of the work experience. I touched on this earlier as well. And, we have had for the past several years this wave of Fab Lab, and especially for product design, how you would prototype, 3D print part of the top of an engine or any other product for that matter physically. And we can actually combine this, not to be just in the same location, doing product R&D, designing, whether it's from an engineering standpoint or more from a design and creative side of things, for example, a sound speaker here, and bringing the best of both physical and virtual worlds and collaboration as we've depicted. So here behind, for the sake of timing, we have a pre-recorded similar demonstrations as Lauriane was showing, but where I would be able to manipulate and be assisted. So AI can provide me with some and help me resolve some constraints about where to position parts of this sound speaker, and then I would decide on the color, on the size, more from a creative side of things, or just purely engineering. If you imagine about a chemist working in a lab as well and doing molecule discovery in a good old-fashioned way, but also in a more immersive way. And so that's what we depict in the background here. And to complement this, it's not just about being virtual and anywhere, but it's also afterwards being able to start to sense a bit more and have more interaction. We'll touch a bit later on some of that, but in another scenario and use case. But here, maybe, Lauriane, if you switch right a bit on this side, being able to see what we have, for example, to add haptic, which means touch. So how we can, and so those are the latest generation, quite bulky, I would agree, but where not only can I, on the two hands, be able to see and feel the texture, the sense with the skin, the touch of any material and any product I'm manipulating, but also feel a bit the weight. So the force feedback is what this includes. And there are different generations of those gloves to add the touch. Some are literally more lighter, and it's not just about the touch also, but it can be looking at olfactive. So this is here with some particular primitives of smell, being able to combine and generate particular odor and the olfactive element. Again, that's coming. That's a bit early right now, but it's devices that exist that you can start to integrate the multi-user, multi-sensorial type of experiences, mixing again this continuum we talked about earlier. So back to you, Lauriane.
Thanks, Emmanuel. So when we talk about the metaverse, we also would like to mention the use of synthetic data to be able to train artificial intelligence model. And that's exactly what we did for financial services use cases, for credit risk prediction, for instance. As you know, so bankers' income is coming from the number of loans that is accepted when you would like to apply for a credit. And usually we would like to predict if the credit will be well reimbursed or not. But a lot of banks doesn't want to share data to be able to train an artificial intelligence model. So in this case, we could use synthetic data to be able to train the AI model. And here, if I zoom a little bit on the screen, you can see that on the left part, we have a simulation of the number of loans that will be accepted or rejected. And we can see that with the original data sets, we have a lot of credits that are not supposed to be reimbursed and that will be rejected by the artificial intelligence model. But if we use also synthetic data, this is the second column that you can see here, we can see that more people will have their credit accepted and the loan also reimbursed for the bank. So here we reduce the risk for the bankers to not being reimbursed, and we augment the number of credit that will be accepted by the banks with a higher confidence level. So here, this is also another example of how could we use synthetic data to be able to train artificial intelligence model in the context of financial services. Continuing with Emmanuel.
Yeah. So I'm here, and maybe you can switch to different angles from the different cameras here in this corner. So we're more in the industrial zone. And here, just a continuation of this notion of importance of data, synthetic data, but also data protection and tokenization. We have a running example here in the background of a business process around trade finance, where trade finance is quite complex, when you import goods, produce goods, etc. And here, what we can see is using smart contract in a blockchain to be able. And here we have the view of the contract where we can read some of the data. But obviously in a blockchain, it would look something like this, so unreadable, undecipherable. And here, this is an example of when we talk about tokenization, whether it's NFT to transfer the property, the ownership of that NFT, like Lauriane showed earlier in a more consumer scenario. Here we're talking about, for example, the bank validating the importer, the exporter of the goods, that everything is as it should be in the process. Fully digitizing, but also being able to bring the traceability, the protection of the data where it shouldn't be read, and being able, therefore, from a human standpoint, just a plain old, screen where I can monitor what's happening as a banker, but in the background, having only one view of the data and protected and tokenized. So that's an example. Maybe let's switch back to digital twin with you, Lauriane.
Thank you, Emmanuel. So back to the more industrial context, and let's see how could we use a digital twin? How could we automate also the creation of digital twins? So here I would like to use 3D scanners that I have around me to be able to create the digital twin of those pipes that you can see here. And that's exactly what you can see behind me. So at the first side, I have the point cloud model, and then thanks to artificial intelligence, automation, I have a very accurate model that I can use for simulation, but also for predictive maintenance. If I equip my original pipes with sensors and IoT, I can follow in real time how the equipment works, and I can predict in advance if there is gas leaks, for instance, if I have to change the machine before it shut down. Also, when we have those type of 3D models and digital.
So here, just to add while you transition, indeed, like you said, having this 3D and this high fidelity of the 3D model will allow to do all sorts of physics simulation, not just the collection of data, but being able indeed to look at, based on the materials that this piece of equipment is made of, being able to go even further in the prediction or simulation from a physics standpoint. Maybe switching here on this side. So you see Jeff is standing here in this a piece of equipment that will add, and you can see and follow in the background what Jeff is able to see. We use exactly, and let's say we have scanned an existing offshore rig, and you see on the side this so that's the control room maybe, and you see this piece of equipment that we just had as an example illustration for monitoring and digital twin. Here the goal, and you can see what Jeff is doing with not only walking and running. This is a stressful scenario where lives depend on the accuracy of the movement of Jeff and the speed of reaction. And this, he's following certain procedures, but safely. So meaning like he cannot fall, he can get burned, he cannot, be faint because of gas and everything. And so that's another example, a bit stressful. And on the side here, we can track and monitor on the screen. So not only if we equip with a suit, which is haptic as well, which will able to track, his stress level and everything, but as well as also here how he's being following a particular procedure. So how we can optimize, make the environment more safe and everything. Those are the kind of applications we're looking at.
Perfect. Thanks, Emmanuel. So continuing on the programmable world, and also how could we combine different type of technologies such as robotics and also virtual reality. So what you can see around me is a lot of industrial robots, and during the pandemic, for instance, we worked on a robotic digital twin, which enable us to be able to control a physical robot into the showcase. So basically this Panda Franca Amica here, thanks to virtual reality being at home comfortably. So I will put the video right behind me to be able to show you how does it look like. But basically, I can control the physical robot thanks to the robot's digital twin. So here, this is exactly what I can see in my virtual reality headset. I can put some maintenance operation, and all the operation will be done on the physical robot in real time. So that's exactly what you can see here. So on the left screen, you can see what I can see in my virtual reality headset, and all the operation, all the maintenance info are done in real time on the physical robots into the showcase. So this is for training purposes, but also coach over the shoulder. Also, we can do the same into the other way. So here my colleagues is manipulating the robots in the physical showcase, and all the action and operation all are done in real time on the robotic digital twin in my virtual reality headset. So this is the perfect illustration of programmable worlds and metaverse. So Emmanuel, I know that you are back into our green studio, so I will hand over to you.
Perfect. So yeah, we're right on time, and with me virtually, Joraj is here today. Hello.
Hello, Emmanuel. How are you?
Perfect. So I'm good. I'm good. So you might think that we are in completely different environment, but actually we are. We are in the same synthetic world around me here. You see, obviously, Lauriane, who was just momentarily in the showroom, and so Joaj with me. But actually, we are about 2,000 kilometers away from each other, I guess. And that's another example of how we can make the experience, this continuum, and that we wanted to quickly illustrate. So I don't know, Joaj, if you want to say a few words or anything, but that's possible to
Yeah,
come.
I just
Please
wanted
go.
to add that for a couple of times today during in the Metaverse track and presentations, we mentioned that the Metaverse is about to moving from the reality to virtual reality to augmented reality and back and forth. So this is exactly the solution which is enabling that. You being in Sophia Antipolis, me in Bratislava, at OpenSlava physically, but we are both in a virtual environment. So I just would like to invite people, if you want to know something more, we're still in Expo Arena. There's still people around. If you want to know more about this technology, just come to us.
Perfect. Thank you, Joaj, and thanks everyone for having us with you virtually from Sofia in person but remote, and with Lauriane and all the guys with us here, Jean-François and Gauthier, who are making this happen. So a big thank you, and we'll be, let's say, around virtually for any question, any follow-up. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Awesome. All right, we got some time for some questions, so I'm just gonna pose them as we go because I assume you don't see them. First question has been around for a while during your talk. Your T-shirt is transparent. Is that Metaverse?
Exactly. Actually, that's a good point. So you need to look at the colors when you're such in synthetic environment and green studios to reveal the magic. And second, it's also actually, funnily enough, that's this kind of same technology we use to also, and working with some retailers on how something, whether it's a logo of a car, could look like on me in the real world. So that's in my answer. Well, Alf a joke, but Alf also on your revealing on what sort of bringing back to the physical world what the metaverse could be. Configurable clothes is what I'm talking about here.
Okay. Next question is, what's the big additional value of the metaverse? Like doing meetings, shoppings, it's all a bit more comfortable, but it doesn't seem to be such a big benefit.
That's a very good question. I think that will be the key for the next decade. And if I look back at exactly about 10, 15 years ago when we started to discover the wave of digital, we had arguably a bit of the same comments, rightfully so or not, about, what those mobile smartphones will do more than the feature phone, what those tablets will do more than this laptop, what the social media platforms will bring me, that I cannot do. And so I think that's central for me. I think it's sometimes, again, and we've seen in the past couple of years with the pandemic, unfortunately, the acceleration of adoption of, the way that now 2,000 kilometers away from Juraj, I can be presenting next to him or just using video conferencing very often. But I think it brought and proved that, we can adapt, we can react and continue, and it can help in certain crises like the pandemic. I think also, it will bring we'll have to learn on and I think go back to the basics every time, which is the human at the center. And why I'm saying this is, we thought already 25 years ago with the first wave of the e-commerce that I talked about earlier, that shops and traditional shopping and will disappear. Well, the reality is not. It's been adapting and optimized in some way. It's been also from an experience standpoint, from also the way the business behind are being run also different. So I think, to summarize, I think in the metaverse, it's going to be sometimes we need to have this additional elements, Internet of Place, Internet of Ownership. Sometimes we simply want. But I think what we'll need, and again, to be discovered, but I think, and future will tell, but for us to also, help define. And I think that's why we have this lab and all these liquid studios in Accenture to help start to test for real, to some extent, this kind of real applications versus the gadget applications.
Okay, and we have time for one more. The top question right now is, would you mind explaining a bit more in depth what you actually mean by synthetic data?
Sure. So synthetic data is essentially how, imagine you have a customer record, so a data set, you are a bank, and you have all your, or many of your customers with all their, static data, date of birth, etc., combined with the record of transactions and financial products. So that's a data set, and imagine you want to try to optimize, the way you would serve better your customers, but not having necessarily all the branches or the call centers available at any time. And imagine you want to perform different variations. So currently you can do this on your own data set, but actually it's highly regulated, and the more so it becomes more complex when you want to try to share data with external parties that you're partnering with to commercialize a financial product. So synthetic data is all about how can I get that data set, transform it so that it's representative of the actual data, but if it's stolen by someone with good or bad intentions, that person won't be able to actually get my address, birth date, and all history of transactions. So that's an example of synthetic data. The other example is, imagine you have a camera following, for security reason, a particular warehouse to make sure that people don't go in certain areas where it's dangerous, or that where the trucks go, etc. So that's, you use computer vision for that, and you need to train the system to learn where things are, to recognize shape and form and patterns, and that takes a lot of time to shoot, videos and photographs, etc. Well, if you have a virtual double or a digital twin of such an environment, you can generate many possibilities synthetically. So you could imagine you place a truck, you place a dinosaur if you want, and your system in the real life will detect if a velociraptor is entering the warehouse. I know it's very unlikely, but that's an example of synthetic data coming to the rescue.
Awesome. Ending with dinosaurs in your meeting or in your environment. Thank
Exactly.
you so much. We're all out of time, so another big round of applause. Emmanuel and the rest of the team in the room, thank you so much.